Welcome to the Addison channel.
Eh?
Here's my bubble tea.
Move away, bitch. My turn to shine. Get out. So in today's episode, we're going to be... Oh my god, the cats are playing with the wire. So in today's episode, we're going to be going over lessons that we learned during our real estate journey. So it will go through the search, the process, money, and as a couple, and overall as well. Yes. So I guess like we're also doing a mukbang here. This Taiwanese pork chop bento box, and I also ordered curry fish balls, which are over here. And this bento box actually comes with, I don't know what this is. I think it's like cherry blossom lychee or something like that. So what did you get?
Okay, so
show it to the camera.
We bought some food from Earnest Tea Cafe
in Brooklyn. And
I went with the combo, which is basically you get to choose your own burger, either a chicken sandwich or a grilled burger, and you get to choose your own side. So for me, I got the popcorn chicken,
Taiwanese popcorn chicken,
mildly spicy, and I went with the lemon bubble tea because
but there's no bubbles in there. So is it really bubble tea?
Okay, lemon tea, folks, lemon tea.
Yeah.
This is how you do it. You don't even look at it, you just stab it in.
So the first thing we're gonna go over is search. So what are some lessons that you learned during our search in terms of like the criteria we wanted when we were looking at places?
Well, one of the lessons learned from searching is that there's just so many properties to look at because especially in Brooklyn, there's so many places you have to think about what neighborhood you want to look at. Because you need to know that this is a good neighborhood to have kids or just as a bachelor pad or just in general, like this is where you want to see yourself in the next 5-10 years. So it's definitely a longer process than I expect. I usually would think like, hey, let's just look at this place in like Midtown or something in New York, and then you realize the taxes there is 10 times more expensive than what you're expecting. Because you'll see that it says it's only like what, $2,000 a month, but then you really look through at the actual tax or like HOA dues or in general, they're actually a lot more expensive. So that's stuff that I've learned during searching. Look for places that are not that expensive when it comes to those taxes, and for property tax, HOA dues, and just in general.
The monthlies.
And the monthlies, yeah. What about you, Christine?
I think it's so funny how we thought we could afford a $1.25 million condo in the beginning. Because we thought that the down payment, exactly 20% was enough. No, we actually did not think about closing costs. And we also did not know about mansion tax. So that's one of the reasons why we decided to go under $1 million, which honestly is still like expensive anyways. But we decided if we want to go under, we can't do those fancy places in Manhattan. We were actually looking at like FiDi, Upper East Side, Upper West Side. But even so, those weren't actually feasible for us because of the monthlies as well. Even though we may have afforded it, but like the monthlies is where we're getting killed at because of the property tax and the HOA dues are way above than like how it would be in other boroughs. Addison's parents kept on saying, get a 1-bedroom condo and then transition the living room into a flex bedroom for, you know, like when we have kids and everything. I personally was like, we need to get an actual living room, okay? We're not gonna be living the way his family did. Not to say that was bad, but if we want our kids and our family to be happy, we need to think about what we want, not what they want. And actually, we're gonna get into that a little bit more on the couple section of it, because I think a lot of our parents have tried to influence us. But again, it is our purchase at the end of the day. So our search has to be what we want. And that's where we were like deciding between Queens or Brooklyn or maybe even Westchester, Connecticut or New Jersey. But we ended up going for Brooklyn because it's just like where we're familiar with. And also it just has the best looking properties in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I think like another thing was that we also need to make sure to narrow down as much as we can. If we just say, and I'm not saying narrow it down as in like, here's all of the requirements. It's like actually narrow down to what you want, what you need, what you don't want, and what you don't need. So having that kind of lined up, we have like a whole sheet out there that really helps us define what we want. And at the end of the day, we use that as like, here's the holy grail of like what we actually want. Because if you narrow it down to that kind of like priority list, it will make it so much easier to see like what is actually better than the other property. And also my other lesson learned is like, you have to do your research well in advance. So if that means that you need to look on their market or stalk it a little bit, like, you know, we got like a lot of listing center emails and everything, flooded it, but at least we saw it. And also to know what is comparable in the actual neighborhood itself, because that's where you can see is a good deal or not.
And also make sure you can realistically pay for it too.
Yeah.
Because if you think that, oh yeah, this won't be as bad, like I can pay for this down payment. But as Christine mentioned, make sure you can also afford the closing. Unless the sellers decide to pay for your closing, then it's definitely more worth it. Because closing can go up to maybe up to $48,000. And I didn't even know it can go that high, honestly.
Did it go that high for us? I think it did.
Yeah, I mean,
it's because we bought points, which again was something that we're going to talk about in the money or process part. I didn't know, at least until I really looked into it. It's like, oh, no one I knew actually bought points until we did.
Yeah.
Moving on to process. What did you learn throughout the entire process? Searching, buying, closing, moving in, actually doing our first bill or whatever.
I mean, when it came to the process, I can already picture what's going to be in my head, but then to actually do it in person is just so tiring. Sometimes you don't feel as motivated because, especially during the pandemic, you don't feel like you want to be going out just because it's risky. When it comes to this process, I think the most fun part is supposed to be being able to go out and look at different houses. But it's hard when there are restrictions. It makes you not want to continue the process. But it's just we know how low the mortgages were going, so we're just like, might as well. The interest rates was going. So it would cost less by mortgage for us to pay per month. So because of that, we decided to just continue like it's a normal day.
I have two. One is do your own due diligence. If you talk to anyone else about their process, they're either in a different time in general, they're different times. So like if we asked our parents, they did it like 20 plus years ago. Their time is so much different than our process right now. And if you're talking from New York to maybe like California, their processes are different too. So you really need to do your due diligence and research what exactly there needs to be. If that means to talk to a real estate agent, talk to your attorney if you're in an attorney state, and also talk to your lender, because there's so many things that we did not know that are accessible online, but it's always going to be different from city to city or state to state or even country to country. So do your due diligence about that so you clearly know what exactly is going on. So like something that we didn't even know about, because no one talks about this, is like tenants in common. We're like 50-50, and also the other one was like if you're married or if you're like not married or something like that. But that one was like we had to figure out, okay, so if one of us, I don't know, what was it? If we die or if we left or if we broke up or something, who actually gets it?
Yeah.
So for us, we did tenants in common 50-50. So because of that, we had to actually realize what that implies in terms of like the money or like if we need to sell it or anything like that. The other one that I need to say is that for the process itself, there were other lessons that we had to learn. One was for sure, make sure to confirm all of your information for the bank when you send your wiring, either your first deposit or your final deposit. Make sure, because if you haven't seen my video yet, make sure to check it over here in terms of how I potentially lost $50,000. So that was already a pain of itself, just trying to, make sure the money went through and that we didn't lose this condo. The other thing about it was we actually lost the first condo where we were trying to get this condo in Cobble Hill, and we were actually competing. We were on like some kind of bidding war with this other buyer. But something to really learn about is you should not be emotionally invested in a condo or a house or anything like that, because then if you go for your first condo or apartment or whatever and you lose it, it will be devastating. So you want to make sure you can bounce back quickly and move on to the next place. So just really see it as more of like, here's a place that we will be living in, rather than here's our place, because it's not your place yet. So that was something that we had to learn, because I remember being so invested, like, oh my God, did we get it? Did we get it? And then every time I would talk to our agent, like, did we get it? Did we get it? Did we get it? Oh, nah. And then we didn't get it, like sad.
Yeah, that's another thing. So make sure you have the money in your savings account, whichever you're trying to use to deposit the cash to the seller. Because sellers mostly, depending on the situation, they only care about if you have the money right now for the down payment. If you don't have it now, and then the person you're expecting to have that amount through like a gift, you don't think like, oh, you might not have it on time. So that's another reason why you could probably lose during a bidding war.
your financial situation matters too. It's not just if you have the down payment or the fact that you have like maybe like the terms could be better or something like that. You need to actually be able to provide it at that particular time if there are bidding wars. Otherwise, they'll probably just take you because you're the only one. Next, we have money. So I think one of my lessons is to figure out your finances, and it's good because we were actually renting together before, so we already figured out our finances in terms of how we would split up the expenses. So we actually do everything 50-50, almost everything 50-50. The rent is 50-50, the utilities are all 50-50, groceries minus like the little one-off ones if it's just like for you or just for me. And a lot, like for example, the cat stuff are all me.
Yeah.
But you need to figure out your finances before you even get through this entire process. I think for us, like even though we did this, it's a whole different story when it comes to down payment and actually figuring out how to do property taxes and mortgage and everything like that. And what was worse for us is that technically our rental apartment is still on lease. So we have to pay rent on top of mortgage and property tax and interest and HOA dues. So we had to really deal with that. Unfortunately, like our landlord couldn't find someone quick enough, so I'm still on the hook to actually pay for the rent. But hopefully that is over soon so we could just focus and save more money, because right now it's just like, oh, we have to pay 2 apartments basically.
Yeah. You mean we are on hook,
Yeah.
Fortunately.
Yeah. Both names are on the lease, so.
Sadly. I could have gotten out. Okay. But yeah. So make sure you get out of your rental place on time before, or else you'll be charged double.
Most people can sublet. Most people can probably do a lease assignment, but when it comes to our apartment, it's like a affordable housing, so you can't do that. You have to be actually going through the lottery. So for us, honestly, it's just like we have to be financially prepared for both situations of like whether or not we have it or not. And in addition to that, I think like the financial part of the couples section is really just seeing how would you handle this before you do it. Because, for example, we actually didn't do 50-50 down payment. So we needed to come to a stern agreement in terms of what does that mean. So we personally have contributed 50-50. Our parents' contribution are out of the gate, what they were planning on giving us to begin with, because, you know, most people do that when you get married, but we're just doing it earlier. So that's how we were dealing with it. So even when it came to like furniture shopping, we also did everything 50-50. And because he paid more upfront and I didn't have much money upfront compared to him. So I actually paid for, like, let's say if there's a couch that's like $3,000 or something like that, I would pay it in full, but then deduct his half towards what I owe to make it 50-50. So that's how we did it with money.
Yeah. Make sure you have someone doing this with you that's trustworthy. You don't want them to just lie to you and just run away with your money. You need to make sure you have the finances.
So let's move on to couple. And I guess like we'll talk about specifically couple, but then we'll also give some pointers in terms of if you're doing it with like someone that's a friend of yours or a family member or anything like that. But I think it's very important for, at least for me, to detach ourselves from this entire thing. What can we feasibly deal with money-wise and operational-wise? So do we really need 2 bathrooms? Probably not, but just think about it that way. Don't be selfish and everything. You gotta really work with your partner or whoever you're gonna be with and see what is actually required. And I think like for me, I'm gonna bring this back, but make sure our parents don't influence our decisions, because your parents really influence you, and I try to fight back.
They didn't really influence me. Just give me like details of like what I should be looking for.
But they tried to make you do open houses without me.
I mean, they said it, but it's not like I was gonna do it. The struggle of an Asian American with only Chinese speaking parents.
I think as a couple, we also have to figure out how would we want to do our life later on in terms of having a family. Because we can't, when you're buying a place, it's not just you anymore. It's actually like your future 10, maybe 15, 20 years. If you decide to move out though, that's like all on you. But we were planning for long term. It's also our first home, so we were deciding, do we want it to make it all in, live here for the rest of our lives? But we decided to just kind of stick with this place until maybe there's an opportunity. Only when there's an opportunity or we see that our circumstances have changed either for work or for life. We're planning for the future, making sure that if we were to stay here for long term, we can handle it and there's no reason why we would be leaving it.
Yeah.
So for example, we have 2 bedrooms. We were actually thinking about getting 3 bedrooms, but then financially we can't afford that. So we did 2 bedrooms, but we made sure that the actual layout worked out too. So for the bedroom, we made sure that like, okay, that could fit the kids, and then the way we did the layout of the furniture means that all we have to do is just move our bed, and then we're still going to be good, and all we have to do is just make the other bedroom for the kids. And in New York, it's actually very common to have multiple kids in one bedroom, so that's what we're going to do. We're capping that 2. We're not going to do more than that. 2 kids.
Yeah, it's normal because when I grew up, I had a bunk bed with my sister, so it's normal.
In the living room.
Yeah, in the living room. You can have one in the living room too, you know. Take away the couch, there we go, bunk bed.
There's a bed there, so it could technically work.
That'd be a third kid's room then, the living room. Definitely, you need to make sure you agree with everything between the two, because we have issues deciding the formatting sometimes at the office. She wants to be in a more better location for her YouTube stuff. I just want to have the same thing as well. Because where my desk is, there's a big ass column blocking me. So there's a huge gap right at the end between my desk and the wall, and it's just annoying. But I compromise, you know. As the guy, the man of the house, I had to make sure I make sacrifices for her. Remember, guys, respect your girl.
Happy wife, happy life, even though I'm not your wife. Those are all our tips specifically for being a couple. If you're going in with a friend or family member or a random person, honestly, I think it's really clear to see what is your goal? What are you looking to get out of it? Is it an investment property? Is it like a primary residence? Or maybe you're just doing this as a short-term thing, and then maybe someone else, your partner or whatever, is the one that's living there, or vice versa. So you need to make sure that you actually hammer this down in terms of like how you would deal with this financially, what you actually want in the condo or apartment or whatever. And I think that's something that you need to be 100% clear to also make sure that you split personal from professional. So in that situation, if you're going with a family member and like, let's say I move in with my mom or something and she's like fighting about, I don't like this stove, I want an electrical stove. You have to be stern about, does that actually make sense? Are we really gonna ditch this entire apartment because it has a gas stove? No. So you need to be stern about what actually makes sense, what you actually need. So we're gonna go back to like the search section where you need to really narrow it down to what you need, what you want, what you don't need, what you don't want.
And what you can afford.
And what you can afford, and what can you actually do, and what are your goals? Like, does it make sense? Because in my opinion, for our apartment, the monthlies are still pretty high. So if we did want to rent it out, it's still gonna be a little bit hard unless we make it a little bit higher rent. But that's something to keep in consideration. So overall, do you have anything for lessons learned, not related to any of those sections? Maybe specific personal experiences or anything like that?
So I say definitely do some more research. Go on like those.
Do your due diligence.
Yeah, watch some financial YouTubers, real estates too, if you're interested about that, of course. And learn how the process goes, because you can probably find more details compared to like just watching a YouTube video.
And again, do your due diligence about how it is where you are, because even though those YouTubers probably know a lot, they're probably specifically talking about their experience, not what you would be handling. For us, we did it during a pandemic, so no one had experience in that until you actually go through it during the pandemic.
Just the terminologies, like Investopedia is pretty useful. That's where I learned most of my terminologies from there. So that's what I was talking about. Instead of just watching YouTubers talk about the process, make sure you research the terminologies too.
So do you know about points?
Of course.
What are points?
I get money back.
That's not how it works. Points, if you don't know, again, I'm not an expert, but this is how it is. You pay for points, so percentage points off of your actual purchase price to get percentage off your interest rate. So you need to really kind of evaluate how long are you going to be in this particular place, and does it make sense? Because if you're going to only be there for 3 months or 3 years, you need to make sure that it actually makes sense in terms of, will you be making up your money back because you're saving from the lower interest rate? But when it comes to points, you actually have to pay that in addition to your closing costs. So you pay that up front. If you're not there for a long enough time to break even, then it's not worth it. You probably didn't look that up in Investopedia, did you?
Of course I did. I was just testing her, guys.
Wow. So yeah, that's all the lessons that we learned about our real estate journey. There's still a lot more probably, but these are the ones that really come to mind that are probably going to be applicable to everyone. But hopefully this helps everyone. Hopefully this food makes you hungry. But if you guys are ever in Brooklyn, make sure to check Earnest Tea Cafe. This is not sponsored. I hope so. Please, Earnest Tea Cafe, if you look at this, please sponsor me.
If you watch this, not look at this.
All right.
I'm a teacher.
Thank you, guys. Make that big for you.
Babies. kitties.
Okay, bye.
Outro. We didn't do an intro. We'll say, what's up, my cats and dogs?
No.
What's up, my consulting cats?
You're done?
Yeah. This is the Addison YouTube channel. I'm taking over.
Make your own YouTube channel before you do that.
I already have a YouTube channel. I have 2 subscribers.